أنتم الذين بالمسيح تمتم المسيح قد لبستم Hallelujah. Well, hello everyone. It's good to be back with you today, and I really need to discuss, I think, a pretty delicate issue, and maybe we'll even do it we'll see how it goes today, but I want to talk about the Palestinian issue. Because it was so much in the news the last couple of weeks. And I think there's a lot of misinformation. And I think it's, someone may say, you're a priest, what do you want to talk about a political issue? This is not a political issue, man. This is a moral issue. Deeply moral and ethical issue. I mean, we could talk about this subject for hours. When I was in Montreal, we had the last remaining task force for Jerusalem organization, in which we wanted to inform the Canadian public about the thorny issue of peace in the Middle East, and about the faith communities in Jerusalem. And it was an ongoing body until I left. I don't know if it's still there or not, but all the years that I was in Montreal, we did quite a few wonderful projects, even financially helping. And one of the outcomes was that what was born in the basement of our church is now a national body in Ottawa, the National Canadian Arab organization, in which they inform the government and the Canadian public about what's going on in the Middle East, and in particular the Palestinian issue. I almost don't know where to start because there's so much. There's so much to talk about. If I just talk about Jerusalem, maybe we'll do that for the first half, and then I'll continue it later. Jerusalem has become a kind of an archaeological Disneyland, where people from the world go and look and see where Jesus was, what he did, where he was, where he walked, as though there was no community there in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was the site of Pentecost, the inauguration between Antioch and Jerusalem is the inauguration of the Christian church. Jerusalem is the site of the Holy Sepulchre, called so by Western Christians, but we Orthodox, because it is our Orthodox church, is called the Church of the Resurrection, because our emphasis is not on just the crucifixion of Christ, but on his glorious and life-giving resurrection. That church has such historical influence and impact. In fact, one of the sad events of recent memory, and I was highly criticized for saying this, but I'm still going to say it. When the late Pope John II went to Jerusalem, he did a Latin Mass in the Church of the Resurrection. I watched that with great interest because I felt it kind of shows how you have this Western imperialistic approach to that holy place. A Latin Mass in an Arab church, as though we do not exist, as though there's no indigenous Christians in Jerusalem, the place of the early Christian gatherings, the place where Helena found the life-giving cross of Christ, Constantine's mother. We just celebrated this feast. And in September, we celebrate the elevation of the cross. Great conquerors refused refused to walk in to that church so it would not be turned into a mosque. So much reverence is for that church. Helena built the Church of the Nativity. There's always been a thriving Christian community. Not all Palestinians are Muslims. Christians and Muslims and Jews coexisted in that city since time immemorial. But there was a large indigenous Christian community. And when the Mass was celebrated in Latin, it kind of gave a signal that we just did not exist there. That this is not our land. There could have been an Eastern Rite priest to celebrate the liturgy in Arabic. This is an Arab community, an Arab Christian church, an Arab Christian community. And I take great offense at the fact that Western Christians go, as I call it, an archaeological Disneyland. They look, I walked in the footsteps of Jesus. Hollow, but there's nobody there. The impression being. It hurts my heart, having been there many, many years ago, in 1966, having attended a divine liturgy, a midnight liturgy, which is celebrated by the Orthodox, in the Church of the Sepulchre. I wept, and I weep now. It reminds me of that biblical saying, Jerusalem, O Jerusalem, from Jesus. You know, there's this idea, and we'll talk about it later, that Western Christians think that the second coming is going to be in Jerusalem. I didn't know God was a real estate agent. He doesn't mention anything about that. It's an interpretation. We've been there for thousands of years. And we coexisted with all co-religionists. Any problem that ever existed in the holy city came from outside. Instigated from the outside. But we cannot forget about our Christian heritage in the Holy Land. The Orthodox Church, the first Christian church in that city, in that land. All other religious groups that came there came afterwards. And quite frankly, they did something very tragic. You know, we talk about ecumenism, we talk about how we have to all work together. How many people came from the West, and knowing that during the Ottoman Empire, our communities were broken and fractured and injured, instead of helping the indigenous Christian churches to build up, what do? They build parallel bodies so there would be competition. So Orthodox would convert to another religion if they wanted to educate their kids, because they had a better institution. And instead of helping build up what was there, they became competitors. And I'm going to close this section with one little story. When I was teaching at McGill, the dean of my department one time told me, you know, I went to Jerusalem one day, and I studied there for quite a while. And she said to me, but then I found something very funny. She said, you know, in England, our clergy are supported by the church. But I noticed in Jerusalem, the priests were farmers and they were sheep herders, etc. And she was making fun of our priests. And I banged the table. I said, these men are heroes. These men are the children and grandchildren of priests who kept the church alive through liturgy, because they knew the worship service. Do not denigrate these holy men who had to feed their families, and they sacrificed their lives in order to keep the church alive. These men are heroes. They're not to be put down. And I salute them and will always salute them. And we should all pray for them and pray for the Church of Jerusalem. Thank you.